Namaste all. I am here to discuss with you all the law relating to criminal liability of doctors or medical professionals. To begin with, Garofalo, an eminent criminologist, defined crime in terms of immoral and antisocial acts. He says that crime is an immoral and harmful act that is regarded as criminal by public opinion because it is an injury to so much of the moral sense as is possessed by a community, a measure which is indispensable for the adaptation of the individual to society. Criminal liability arises when a person commits an act expressly prohibited by law, by any written law, or omits to do that which is expressly mandated by any written law. And further, when law prescribes a specified penalty for such proved act or omission. The most common liability that is alleged against doctors is the allegation of negligence. The purpose of holding a professional liable for his act or omission, if negligent, is to make the life safer and to eliminate the possibility of recurrence of negligence in future. Human body and medical science both are too complex to be easily understood. To hold in favor of existence of negligence associated with the action or inaction of a medical professional requires an in-depth understanding of the working of a professional as also the nature of the job and of errors committed by chance which do not necessarily involve the element of culpability. The recent trend appearing from the authoritative pronouncements of the Supreme Court is that the criminal liability cannot be fastened on the medical practitioner unless the negligence is so obvious and of such high degree that it would be culpable by applying the settled norms. The medical practitioner would be liable only where his conduct falls below that of a reasonably competent doctor. It is further held that divergence of opinion with other doctors by itself is not sufficient to infer negligence. Very often used provisions dealing with the criminal liability under which doctors can be tried are under the Indian Penal Code of 1860, section 304 capital A, causing death by negligence. Section 197, issuing or signing false certificate. Section 166 capital B, punishment for non-treatment of victim, that is a duty cast to give first aid to victims of acid attack, rape, etc. Section 80, accident in doing lawful act. Sections 269 to 261, spread of spread of infectious diseases and disobedience of a quarantine rule. Sections 274 to 276, which relate to the adulteration of drugs. Sections 312 to 314, relating to miscarriage, abortion, hiding facts. Sections 315 and 316, act to prevent child being born alive or to cause it to die after birth. Sections 336 to 338, causing hurt by rash or negligent act. Various other provisions, penalties are provided in various other statutes where certain compliances are required, and the doctors or the hospitals or the establishments which fail to comply also have to face certain penalties. What is negligence? Negligence is the breach of a duty caused by omission to do something which a reasonable man, guided by those considerations which ordinarily regulate the conduct of human affairs, would do, or doing something which a prudent and reasonable man would not do. Negligence in the context of medical profession necessarily calls for a treatment with a difference. To infer rashness or negligence on the part of a professional, in particular a doctor, additional considerations apply. A case of occupational negligence is different from one of professional negligence. A simple lack of care, an error of judgment, or an accident is not proof of negligence on the part of a medical professional. Where negligence is an essential ingredient of the offense, the negligence to be established by the prosecution must be culpable or gross and not the mere negligence based upon an error of judgment. In the case of Bolam versus Friarn Hospital Management Committee, reported in 1957, Volume 1, WLR, at page 582, the court in England held that the test is the test of the ordinary skilled man exercising and professing to have that special skill. A man need not possess the highest expert skill. It is well established law that it is sufficient if he exercises the ordinary skill of an ordinary competent man exercising that particular act. The liability to be judged with regard to a medical practitioner is of a higher level than ordinary circumstances in ordinary course of events. The courts have held that because of the nature of the job performed by the medical practitioners, if all their acts which are bona fide and done in the normal course of duty are made to appear and tested on the touchstone of criminal jurisprudence or law, it would be against the interest of the society and would also not be just and proper. It has been held that there has to be supporting evidence to show any performance of duty by medical practitioner has been done either in the absence of proper qualification to do the same or has been done in a manner which would not have been done by an ordinary and prudent person in due discharge of his professional duty. Thus, it has been generally held that though such test may vary from case to case depending upon the facts and circumstances of the individual case before the court, but broadly it has to be seen whether the medical practitioner was competent and authorized to perform the duty which he performed normally during the discharge or performance of his duty, and that he did it with due care and without negligence. In Dr. Lakshman Balakrishna Joshi versus Trimbak Bapu Godbole, reported in AIR 1969, Supreme Court, page 128, the court held that the duties which a doctor owes to his patient are clear. A person who holds himself out ready to give medical advice and treatment impliedly undertakes that he is possessed of skill and knowledge for the purpose. Such a person, when consulted by a patient, owes him certain duties, namely a duty of care in deciding whether to undertake the case, a duty of care in deciding what treatment to give, or a duty of care in the administration of that treatment. A breach of any of those duties gives a right of action for negligence to the patient. The practitioner must bring to his task a reasonable degree of skill and knowledge and must exercise a reasonable degree of care. Neither the very highest nor a very low degree of care and competence judged in the light of the particular circumstances of each case is what the law requires. The doctor, no doubt, has a discretion in choosing treatment which he proposes to give to the patient, and such discretion is relatively ampler in the case of emergency. Medical negligence comprises of the following constituents, I can say. A legal duty to exercise due care on the part of the medical professional, failure to inform the patient of the risks involved, the patient suffers damages as a consequence of the undisclosed risk by the medical professional. If the risk had been disclosed, the patient would have avoided the injury. Breach of said duty would give rise to an actionable claim of negligence. In the case of Matthew Jacob versus State of Punjab in the year 2005, the Honorable Supreme Court of India held that the test for determining medical negligence as laid down in the Bolam's case, the 1957 Bolam's case, holds good in its applicability in India. However, it is very interesting to note, in United Kingdom, the Bolam's case test is deviated from. In the case of Mrs. Montgomery versus Lancashire Health Board, in which case the UK Supreme Court holds that the patient ought to have been informed of the risks involved in the line of treatment adopted, to allow her to choose the treatment. Failure to inform and take informed consent of the patient was ruled against the doctor. In a judgment in the case of Hedley Byrne and Company Limited versus Heller and Partners Limited, reported in 1964 AC page 465, there was a concept known as the rule of reasonable reliance, which was accepted by the UK courts. Bolam applies to all acts and omissions constituting diagnosis and consequential treatment, and Hedley Byrne applies to all advisory activities involving the communication of diagnosis and prognosis, giving of advice on both therapeutic and non-therapeutic options for treatment, and disclosure of relevant information to obtain informed consent. Now, in Jacob Matthews' case, the Supreme Court observed a private complaint may not be entertained unless the complainant has produced prima facie evidence before the court in the form of a credible opinion given by another competent doctor to support the charge of rashness or negligence on the part of the accused doctor. The investigation officer should, before proceeding against the doctor accused of rash or negligent act or omission, obtain an independent and competent medical opinion, preferably from a doctor in government service qualified in that branch of medical practice, who can normally be expected to give an impartial and unbiased opinion applying the Bolam's test to the facts collected in the investigation. A doctor accused of rashness or negligence may not be arrested in a routine manner simply because a charge has been leveled against him, unless his arrest is necessary for furthering the investigation or for collecting evidence, or unless the investigating officer feels satisfied that the doctor proceeded against would not make himself available to face the prosecution unless he is arrested. The arrest may be withheld. In the state of Punjab versus Shivram in the year 2005, the Supreme Court held a caution that if doctors were frequently called upon to answer charges having criminal and civil consequences, it would frustrate and render ineffective the functioning of the medical profession as a whole. And if the medical profession was hemmed by threat of action, criminal and civil, the consequences will be a loss to the patients. And no doctor would take a risk, or a rather justifiable risk in the circumstances of a given case, and try to save his patient from a complicated disease or in the face of an unexpected problem that confronts him during the treatment of the surgery. In the case of Dr. Suresh Gupta versus the government of NCT Delhi, the Supreme Court held that for fixing criminal liability on a doctor or a surgeon, the standard of negligence required to be proved should be so high as can be described as gross negligence or recklessness. It is not merely lack of necessary care, attention and skill. The provisions of section 304 capital A of IPC would not plainly evidence the use of these words. The Honorable Supreme Court has interpreted the provisions of section 304A to mean that the negligence should be described as gross negligence or recklessness. The judgment of the House of Lords in R versus Adomaco was relied upon. In Martin D'Souza versus Mohammad Ishfaq, the Supreme Court observed that whenever a complaint is received against a doctor or a hospital by the consumer forum or by the criminal court, then before issuing notice to the doctor or hospital against whom the complaint was made before the consumer forum, court should first refer the matter to a competent doctor or a committee of doctors specialized in the field relating to which the medical negligence is attributed. And only after that doctor or committee reports that there is prima facie case of medical negligence should notice be then issued to the doctor or the hospital concerned. This was held necessary to avoid harassment to doctors who may not be ultimately found to be negligent. The Supreme Court further warned the police officials not to arrest or harass doctors unless the facts clearly come within the parameters laid down in the Jacob Matthews case. Otherwise, the policemen will themselves have to face legal action, was the warning issued. In V. Krishna Rao versus Nikhil Super Speciality Hospital, the Supreme Court observed that the aforesaid directions are not consistent with the law laid down by the larger bench in the case of Jacob Matthew. In Jacob Matthew, the direction for consulting the opinion of another doctor before proceeding with criminal investigation was confined only in cases of criminal complaint and not in respect of cases before the consumer fora. In Nizam Institute of Medicine versus Prashant Dhananka, the Supreme Court observed, in a case involving medical negligence, once the initial burden has been discharged by the complainant by making out a case of negligence on the part of the hospital or the doctor concerned, the onus shifts on to the hospital or to the attending doctors, and it is for the hospital to satisfy the court that there was no lack of care or diligence. Allegation of medical negligence, it was held, is a serious issue, and it is for the person who sets up the case to prove negligence based on material on record by way of evidence. It is for the complainant to prove negligence by adducing expert evidence or opinion, and it is to be proved beyond all reasonable doubts. It was held, principle of res ipsa loquitur is generally not followed in the cases of medical negligence. However, in cases of apparent rash and gross negligence, the principle of res ipsa loquitur is applied, and the burden to prove absence of negligence shifts on the doctor or the accused. The court or forum cannot constitute itself into an expert body and contradict the expert opinion. The court further held that negligence has to be established and cannot be presumed. In criminal charge, mens rea or intention of committing the crime assumes importance. However, in most of the penal provisions, mens rea is not an essential ingredient for proving the criminal charge. In a very recent decision, in the case of Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecological Societies of India versus Union of India, documentation as required under the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques, Prohibition of Sex Selection Act 1994 is upheld, and the provisions of the said enactment providing penal consequences for its breach are held to be constitutionally valid. Some important judgments that have reiterated the above mentioned principles are Dr. Suresh Gupta versus the government of NCT Delhi, Kusum Sharma and others versus Batra Hospital and Medical Research Center, Martin D'Souza's case, The Nizam Institute of Medical Sciences versus Prashant Dhananka. An earlier judgment, the recent judgments of V. Krishnamurthy versus State of Tamil Nadu, Maharaja Agrasen Hospital versus Master Rishabh Sharma, and there are many other catena of judgments. I can gather the following relevant aspects from the precedents. Laws in India require a doctor or the medical establishment to rigorously follow and comply several procedures of various statutes and rules. All such rules and laws are to be mandatorily complied with, for which every medical establishment may hire an employee to coordinate compliance. Patients need to be given the required knowledge about the kind of treatment, the obvious risks involved in the treatment, the requirement of an emergency surgery or necessity of additional surgery to avoid further damage. Informed consent be taken and the said consent be documented. All mandatory records be maintained, and especially in cases where litigation is pending, such records be maintained till the conclusion of the case finally. Before I conclude, I would whisper a little in the ears of the doctors. A doctor need not worry if he or she is doing everything to save the patient. Earning money is neither wrong in law nor in morals. Being human is also not a crime. Please be human in thought and action. Money is not all in all. Your services will fetch you everything you deserve in life, not necessarily in the form of money only. Law will protect the righteous and the innocent. Law is only a watchdog. Law regulates, not destructs. Finally, Vaidyo Narayano Harati. Doctors are as praiseworthy as the Lord or the God Himself. For the fear of law, do not do away with your responsibility of treating the patient. That's the only major responsibility you owe to yourself and the world. Dehorse this responsibility. Law will not be interested in you, nor will the public be. Thank you. Namaste.